A lot of people have figured out that black mob violence and the violence from Muslims, not just in this country, but in Europe or Africa, I'm running out of continents, Asia, Antarctica, there's a lot of similarities there. I tell people they're not similar. They're identical, molecule for molecule, especially in the way reporters and public officials ignore, deny, condone, excuse, encourage, and even lie about the violence. You know, if you ever meet any reporters, I've worked in newsrooms, so I got a chance to, and I've taught reporters, I hang around with reporters. You kind of figure this out in a big hurry. When you're a reporter, it seems like your main mission, and this is a lot trickier than people think it is. The main mission is to figure out what is true and what is false, or even what can be shown, what can be proven, and what cannot. Many of the reporters, almost all the reporters that I've known in my life, they've kind of gone way past that. And they're not concerned with true and false. They're concerned with good and bad, which they often confuse with what they like and what they don't like. You know, a couple weeks ago, I heard something so bad, it put me on overload that I had to just walked away from the TV news for a couple weeks. Do you remember the rally out in San Jose where a large group of protesters of all different ethnicities and races were attacking Trump people? So the next day on MSNBC, I just turned it on just briefly, just long enough to hear one of the commentators say, well, the people in this country have to make a decision whether they're going to choose a presidential candidate who inspires this kind of violence. Wow. I mean, that is breathtaking in its ignorance, breathtaking in its assessment of our ignorance, that we could sit there and listen to that and not figure out exactly what it is he just said. It happened. I heard it happen again yesterday. So yesterday on the Chris Matthews show, again, I just tuned in for a second. This is what I saw on the second I tuned in. There's Chris Matthews talking to Bob Woodward, Gene Robinson, who I've met and spoken with sometimes, and a woman named Susan Page from US Today. Two guys from the Post, one from USA Today. The Post ran a story yesterday that said Donald Trump seems to connect President Obama to Orlando shooting. The Post has gone officially batshit on Trump. So they run these kind of basically made up stories. Anyway, Trump pulled their press credentials and called them a bunch of names, and everybody was surprised at that. Let's take a look at the Chris Matthews interchange with the Post reporters about that story.
We have two guys from the Post here, two men from the Post. Yes, you're not involved in this one. What do you make of Trump saying you guys are shut out from any coverage of him because of your coverage of this thing today?
Yeah, I mean, this makes no sense, and it won't work in a press ban.
Do you like this headline? Do you like that headline? Is that true headline?
You know, sometimes there are headlines that don't have all the clarity, but the idea that you sort are going to systematically ban people. I hate to go back 40 years, but Nixon on tape will say things like the Post is going to have damnable problems, and then they got people
Donald
that
Trump seems to
the...
connect President Obama to Orlando's shooting. Is that fair? Donald Trump seems to connect President Obama to Orlando's shooting.
Yeah, more fair than not. I mean, you know, he did with that sort of implication inference loop that I was talking about.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Right, but it doesn't matter. It does not matter.
Sometimes we write bad headlines. Sometimes we do stories we have to correct. It's part of the process. If you're going to run for president, you're going to get covered by an aggressive press.
So Woodward won't answer the question. Gene Robinson says it's more fair than unfair, and that chick from USA Today says it doesn't even matter. Wow. So that's the new slogan of the Post? were fair and true at least 51% of the time on average. That this lady from the Post said it doesn't. I mean, from the USA Today says it doesn't even matter because the only thing that matters is, that we're tough on the press. And so maybe this connection is too subtle, but I don't think it is, because this really exposes, to me, such a you don't really get a chance to see reporters look in the camera and say being something that's true and false doesn't really matter as long as it's what we like and don't like. And so there we see all the stuff going on in Europe. We see the stuff happening in Orlando. And all of a sudden the reporters come out and no one's talking about Islam. No one's talking about the connection, the pattern. So it doesn't have to be a connection, it just has to be a pattern. The pattern of Boston, pattern of down in Fort Hood, Texas, now Orlando, Chattanooga, the recruiting station, San Bernardino. How many of these have there been? There have been a ton of these in this country. And the reporters look at us and say, no, none of that is true. But what they're really saying is, it's not what we like. And all of a sudden, we see a microphone in the face of a person with a big old beard, sometimes a turban on, explaining to us that the real victims of these tragedies are the Muslims, who are going to be subject to all sorts of hate and violence, which they never are. Hate and violence because, well, people in America have a bad habit of not liking it when people do bad stuff to us. These reporters, they just sit there and they shrug and they ask for more. And so reporters refuse to get it right on this whole issue of black mob violence, black on white crime, black criminality in this country. Instead, they go on CBS Face the Nation and say, no, the real problem is white on black violence. Reporters refuse to get it right on the topic of Islamic terrorism, saying, oh, the real problem is guns and the real problem is people in America hating on Muslims. And then we look at the circulation and the advertising revenue and the business plans of the worst offenders, people like the Washington Post, people like New York Daily News, people like the Los Angeles Times. And they're crashing, they're burning, they're going out of business. You can't even sell the New York Daily News. They sold Newsweek for $1. And when confronted with the fact that their enterprises are crashing and burning, the publishers and editors and reporters look at us again and tell us another big fat lie, which is, oh, it's the reader's fault. They don't like our in-depth reporting. They want to get stuff in 140 characters at a time. That's beneath us. No, that has nothing to do with it. People are craving information. They're craving the truth. They're craving real stories. But we open our TV and our newspapers and watch our TV and all we hear is this. Well, you saw what we just heard. We see Gene Robinson going, well, as long as it's 51% true, that's okay with the Post. So that's why people are turning to channels like this. That's why people are turning to people like Pamela Geller, Robert Spencer on this Islamic thing, Ann Coulter. We know there's something really, really weird going on, but we're not getting the straight. We're getting the opposite of the straight story. That's why so many people like Trump, whatever else the particulars of his campaign may be, people sense that we're getting a straight story from him, and he doesn't feel the need to kowtow, kiss the ass of these reporters who are going to have decided to do nothing else but abuse him from now till the election. The woman, I love that woman from the USA Today. She was actually kind of surprised that anybody would actually fight back. You know, I've actually had experience being in a position where, I decided that I was going to fight a major media source in a town where I used to live. They reported something bad about one of my friends. Because I knew the people involved. To me, they weren't big, bad television reporters. To me, they were just like a Radio Shack geek with their TV transmitter. I put up a website about them. I started telling things about them, true things about them. They didn't like it. They're the ones who called the truce. And that's what Trump is doing now. Why does Trump have to volunteer for this abuse like that clown from USA Today seems to think? Why do we have to suspend judgment about her as long as she looks tough and she's asking Donald Trump tough questions that she just got, stuffed into her iPhone from the latest, Hillary press release? I'm surprised they haven't gone back to the Trump ranch and found racial epithets from 50 years ago written under rocks. Remember what they did to Perry 4 years ago? So that's why the media is dying. That's why people like this channel and lots of other people, whether it's Gateway Pundit, Breitbart, Daily Caller, Drudge, of course, God, they're so important. And that's why we don't have to wait around for these reporters. They're never going to figure it out. This morning somebody posted on this YouTube channel saying, Colin, I need some arguments to ammunition against these people at this website. Well, we don't really argue with people on this channel as much as expose them. There are people that are, I just roughly always say it's 20%. They just absolutely refuse to consider anything bad about Islam, anything bad about the level of black mob violence, black and white crime, and black criminality in this country. They not only don't consider it, they actively say anybody reporting it is A, wrong, and B, a bad person. That's why I want you to like this channel, subscribe to it. Hey, go get one of our t-shirts, one of our Didn't Do Nothing t-shirts. Easy to find how to get it on the show description. Read Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. People forget that book's not just about black mob violence. Half the book is about how the media and public officials ignore, deny, condone, excuse, encourage, and even lie about it. It's really kind of a media book, at least as much media as it is black mob violence. And so I know people would love to see me on some of these big networks where lots and lots of people are talking about this racial violence without the authority and the facts that we bring to this channel. Well, it's hard to go on these stations if the very first thing you're going to say is, oh yeah, CBS, you face the nation. You guys did an unbelievably bad thing. Remember this? Even Fox is not exempt. They had Killer Mike on there, and we had Brian Kilmeade was talking about Killer Mike. He's a big Bernie Sanders guy, and his video, when are you niggas going to unite and kill the police, motherfuckers? There's Kilmeade going, oh yeah, well, Killer Mike's a nice guy. He just left out one thing. When dealing with Killer Mike, never forget, don't make the black kids angry.